guys. So glad to have you join me and share some energy on another episode of Evolve. Last week, we got into some moon stuff. And wait, let me go back here, guys. I'm your host, Monette Brann-Natta. I'm so excited to get into the moon stuff. I heard a lot of great feedback about it. So let's get right into it for Capricorn, which was the next sign. We left off with Sagittarius, and we were talking about the way that the moon affects us. And so I'm going to get right into Capricorn. Capricorn moon signs. It's important to remember that you always seem to have it together. No matter what's happening behind closed doors, when things are falling apart at the seams, everyone is freaking out. You guys are calm, you're cool and collected if you have a Capricorn sun or a Capricorn moon sign. If there's ever an emergency, a Capricorn moon really understands what to do. You guys don't let your emotions get the better of you. And at times it can seem like you're very distant or extremely cold, which is not the case at all. You're just always assessing the situation for the best way to handle it. It's important that you allow yourself to feel sometimes. It may be messy, and that's what you guys want to avoid, because you guys hold on a lot to emotions. Everything can't be perfect. So it's really important to remember to let yourself express your feelings and get in touch with your creative, more artsy side, Capricorns. It's okay. The world will not end. Step outside of that box. So it's very important that you let your loved ones in too. Otherwise, they may feel that you don't care about them because it feels like you're shutting them out, but you're not. You're just trying to make sure that they have everything they need. I would say Capricorn is definitely associated with a sign of provider. It deals with the planet of Saturn, and Saturn is a fathering planet. It's a planet of long lessons. It's a planet of things that are hard to kind of figure out. It's a pull yourself up by your bootstrap planet. So it's important for Capricorns to feel like they have a great path in life and that people look up to them. They're likely a big risk taker unless they have a lot of fire, and they are very ambitious, and they can definitely plod along their path and get things done. Planning for the long haul is something that they usually do without realizing it, and it makes them seem even more stable. These guys are planners, these guys and gals. They have a nest egg. Being broke to them means that they have $7,000 in their bank account, and that's Capricorn suns and Capricorn moons. They do not wait for life's incidentals. They're the person that's going to get the lifetime warranty on their tires. They're the person that's going to get the warranty, period, because they want to make sure that there's a backup plan, a contingency for when things arise. The next sign is Aquarius. Had a lot of people ask about it. So, hey, all you Aquariuses out there, Aquarius moon or Aquarius sun. It's important that you come to terms with this right away. You may feel like an outsider at times, different from everybody else. You're your own person, and you have a sense of pride about how different you are. You guys are the Mavericks. And you may sometimes feel like you don't fit in. And it's important to understand that you too can be emotionally detached and sometimes aloof. You refuse to let yourself feel bad emotions. That's something that I really admire about my Aquarius friends, whether they're moon or suns, is that they don't let themselves get bogged down by the weight of the world. They kind of live in their own protective world and their own protective space. And there's a song, The Dawning of the Age of Aquarius, that actually really kind of sums up that whole feeling. They're dealing with technology. They're ahead of their time if you're Aquarius. Usually they're very fascinated with space and travel and things like that, and ideas that are light years beyond where most of us are. It's important, though, in relationships that they really anchor in, because some people may find them to be too aloof. Their style of love is, I have you under my protective wing. I love you, but I will not let you impede my individual freedom and my personality. So that's important to understand about someone with an Aquarius moon. They can be very faithful, reliable, and loyal, but it's going to be from a distance. And these people are global people. They're the humanitarians of the zodiac. Oprah Winfrey is a Aquarius sun, and she has embraced the world and brought her message of, inclusion and understanding to the world because she's interested in cultures and multi-ethnic things. Everybody talked about her getting that school outside of the country. That was like textbook Aquarian behavior. She, saw the country here, but she's interested in the world at large. And that's the ideology of Aquarius. They value their friendships, and they're a great source of positive self-esteem And again, back to that humanitarian effort. That's the underlying thing. What can I do for the world is the question that Aquarius asks. And that means that their friends and friendships are going to look very diverse. Always a different group of people. And that means if you're dating them or married to them, there's always going to be people around. So that's something that you need to understand. That's what feeds their soul. Like with Sagittarius, travel feeds their soul. So the next up is Pisces. Pisces moon or sun. These would be relevant for you. They can be hypersensitive with others or themselves. They likely cry at the movies, even at an action comedy. And any little thing can tug at their heartstrings. They don't want to see anybody treated badly ever. It's very important that you know about them, that they're compassionate and understanding and have a hard time hurting a fly, but they can be hurt very easily. And here's the thing, guys. Pisces, sun or moon, you guys are prone to escapism. And that could be through alcohol, drugs, sex, food, shopping, you name it, anything that's indulgent. Because Pisces almost feels like they don't belong here in the world. They have a hard time really grounding themselves, and it would do well for them to study feng shui and understand that it's important to have several elements in their house that are grounding, like rocks or metals or things like that, things that kind of like anchor them to the earth, because Pisces really swim away. And we talked about the crab, how they scuttle to the side when confronted. Pisces is a great escape artist, so they just swim away. You can think that you're involved with a communication or even a confrontation, and they're not really going to be having it. So that's something to understand about Pisces. They are dreamers. They're incredibly creative in this placement. To be in love with a Pisces feels amazing. They fill you up like an empty vase. The thing about that is they can sometimes overgive. So Pisces, protect your resources, be kind to yourself, and kind of take an internal temperature check about where you stand in a relationship. It's very easy for people to walk over Pisces or take for granted or overuse Pisces. And that's when they swim away and you think they're going to be here, and you look around and they're gone because they're exhausted. They've depleted their resources to try to hold you up and be the wind beneath your wings. And Pisces, it's an amazing gift you have. A Pisces that comes to mind is Rihanna. I don't need to say anymore. If you're familiar with that name, you can understand how she may have overinvested resources in someone that she loved. And they have a tendency towards these kind of masochistic relationships, not to that level, but just where they're not on an equal playing field. So Pisces, that's the great challenge of your life, is to make sure that you are assertive and stand up for yourself and you set healthy boundaries. Otherwise, relationships will feel out of balance for you. Vacations on secluded beaches are something Pisces really enjoy. It's paradise for them, especially a Pisces moon. And you need to just be careful again that you don't let people walk over you. Being as soft as you are, that thicker skin development is why you're here on Earth. And that is all about our moon signs. And I want to just tell you this too, guys, which is going on this week. This week, we have a super moon coming up on November 14th at 8:52 Eastern time. And this moon will not only be the closest and the brightest supermoon of 2016, but it's also the largest since 1948. And it will not happen again, this phenomenon, until November 25th, 2034. Okay, guys? We'll still be here, yeah? I don't know. After today, I don't know anything, but I hope that we're still here. And so that supermoon will affect so many things. We have another one coming up at the end of December. And so we were talking all about the moon last week. If you're just joining us and listening, this week, we talked about how it affects us in all kinds of ways. And one of the ways that the moon affects us is through our absolute love of music. And we spoke about hearing our mother's lullaby and associating music with nurture and comfort. And that kind of brings me to my guest for this week. I'm so excited to introduce this guest to you. He is a walking poster for positivity. He's magnetic, absolutely magnetic. Every time I've seen him, I'm just like, there's something about this guy. He's a creative soul, and he marches to the beat of his own drummer. He describes himself as the anti-bully. Adam is a professional musician who believes in the law of attraction and spreads his message of self-esteem, personal growth, through his very popular power karaoke sessions throughout the Space Coast music scene. He and his wife, Melanie, are complete devotees to the band Phish, and they spend their weekends, when their schedule allows them to, and join in the fellowship of the kindred spirits in search of this community of music. Adam is also, if that wasn't enough, an award-winning culinary school graduate in his hometown of Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And this is where he under the tutelage of Professor Don Sexauer, a beloved personal chef and caterer for 6 years to one Miss Oprah Winfrey, that Aquarius we just talked about. So stay tuned, guys, because we're about to climb inside of the mind of this very interesting guy. Adam, greetings. It's so good to have you on today.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, man.
I'm so excited because there's like this plethora of information that you have.
Sure.
We've spoken, and there isn't any subject that you don't seem well versed on. But I wanted to ask you this, or just kind of like go into this. I'm a former band nerd, right? Total unapologetic band nerd. I played several instruments, marching, jazz, concert. I did that, and I've always loved harmonies and the synergy that comes from music and collaborating in jam sessions. But I have to ask you, how did you get bit by the music bug?
As a child, I remember walking the streets with my grandmother, who unfortunately passed when I was 7, of Four Tops, Van Morrison, Hank Williams, walking down and going to like all kinds of little events back when we could do that in my area, in the downtown area, which has actually in the last few years got more of a regrowth back, which is wonderful because I love seeing kids being able to do the same thing I was able to do when I was a child. I think that's kind of where it started. I mean, when I hear, it's the same old song, like the Four Tops or something like that.
Right.
It brings me back to those moments. And I think even as a young child, I realized the power of how it can invoke a memory or smell or something that's gone on in their past. It's very powerful, it's a very powerful thing. So it's always been in my life. And I've come from generations of musicians. I have instruments that are over 100 years old that were my great-grandfathers.
Wow.
So, I mean, it runs through the family. It really does.
Right. For me, I always, church was one of the ways that happened for me, was the music that I loved hearing in church. Kind of, I went to church to hear the music, not so much for the preaching. What about you?
It was that way too. I mean, a lot of people, they ask questions such as, what came first, your blues or your country, which are pretty much very similar styles of music, but they all come from gospel music, and I think that at least that generation's music did. And I think it says a lot when it comes to when you can be in a church and you can feel the movement of how I was raised, which was, it was the movement, God was affecting you in that moment. And, again, just showing the power of music. As time goes by, you start questioning, is it the music? But in my beliefs, I believe that God put me at that moment to experience that. And so I'm able to, look back fondly on things like that. But I'm from a Pentecostal church, so it was fast music, powerful all the time.
Right.
We had a wonderful pastor. I've said this before many times, but it was if you watch the church scene in Blues Brothers, the movie with James Brown as a preacher,
right?
It really shows it's a really good example of how it was when I was a child. So you can imagine it wasn't boring. It wasn't something that I dreaded every week.
Right.
But at the same time, you grow as an individual, and that took me to other types of music or. Experiencing moments with friends that music would affect or help me remember at a later time. So, yeah.
So you come from this background and you're experiencing this great surging freedom with the music of the church, which I totally tapped into and can completely relate to. But were there other ways, though, that you found the church experience restricting?
Well, whenever you're in a group of people in general, you have to remember that we're all people.
Right.
When you're put in places of power, your life is under a microscope. We are not, we all fall short. But in that regard, unfortunately, the only churches I've ever been to have split multiple times. It's not that it's